throughout our life, we've all been conditioned to chase security and to want everything to be certain, to have a certain future, to have a secure job, to know exactly what you will do in the future. And there's this pressure, this societal pressure that if you don't know what you want, or if you don't know how your future looks, or how you're going to make money, how you're going to get by, or what job you're going to work, there's this pressure that it's not just a fear of not knowing it yourself, but actually just being judged by other people. And this pressure is the main reason why most people do what they do. It's not actually the fear of, not being able to get by, ending up on the streets, that they work a job that they don't like. It's actually the pressure of not fitting in, of being judged, of being ridiculed even when you're figuring it out, when you don't know what you want. And the truth is, none of us really know what we want in, let's say, 5 years, because we are going to be a completely different person then. If we are not, if we are the same person that we are now in 5 years, then something obviously went wrong. So the truth is, we can't plan ahead that far. All these 5-year plans, these structured goals, this is what I want to achieve when I'm 30, and all that stuff is, that's all the mind talking. But really, the mind doesn't know what's next. The mind never knows what's next. Maybe you've experienced this. Something, you achieved something. You got to a certain goal. Or you had like a breakthrough in your life. And looking back, it never really made sense. Like, you could have never planned it out exactly as it happened. The mind could have never known how to do the exact steps. And it's always some coincidence or some random thing that brought you to this breakthrough or to this goal. And so we have to get away from, I think, the idea that things have to be certain, and we always need safety in our life. I think that's just conditioning, social conditioning, because safety, when you're chasing safety, then someone else is able to control you. And I'm not trying to, fearmonger or play into this red pill thing. I mean, most of us know that there's a lot of things that are being told to us, that we're being told, that are just not true, and that we're controlled in a certain way. And that control is easier brought on us, that we're easier manipulated when we are in fear and when we have this pressure of, I have to figure things out. I have to have certainty in my life. And yeah, that's why most people make the decisions that they make. Not because, most people don't pick a job or, what they study in university because they love it. Most people do that because they fear the consequences of not doing it. It's like it's a compromise to like limit the amount of suffering that you will have to go through. So everyone's assuming, life is full of suffering. I have to do what I don't want to do. I have to force myself to go this path that everyone else is walking. So let's just pick the path that's least painful. And that's how most people like design their life. Let's pick the least painful path instead of the most fulfilling one. And that's because we are chasing security. We're chasing certainty. And most people think that's completely healthy to want certainty and to want safety. And of course, to a certain degree, like physical safety, obviously, we all want that. But when it becomes like the primary driver of our decisions, then that really limits us. Because, what's the maximum amount of safety? Like, what's the highest degree of safety that you can have? What's the situation there? And I always say, the most amount of security you have is when you're locked in a room without windows and where you can never leave. Like, it doesn't get more safe, more secure than that, because you know exactly what's going to happen. Let's say somebody brings you food 2 or 3 times a day. You can go to the bathroom and whatever. But other than that, you're not allowed to do anything else. That's maximum security. And this is what most people aim for unconsciously. And what people don't realize is that the opposite of freedom is security. Like, when you're completely free, you have no security, because it's the opposite. When you're secure, when you're certain, when you know exactly what's going to happen, then you're not free. Like, everything is structured, everything is already laid out. And this is where most people have this cognitive dissonance. They want freedom. They want to be free, but they don't want to take risks. They don't want to risk safety. They don't want to risk certainty and security. And so they stay in this life that feels secure, and then they wonder why they can never break free of that, and they can never live more freely, when they're literally working against freedom by chasing security. And I think I don't know a lot of people that have realized this. And yeah, this is kind of the point of this video. Why are you chasing certainty? Why are you chasing security? Is that something that you really thought about, that you really want to do? Or is it just something that's been planted in your mind, and ever since then you've just been doing it and just never questioned it? Of course, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear involved in, let's say, quitting your job and doing something that you want instead. Of course, a lot of people like their job. That's totally fine. But I'm talking about people that don't like their job, people that don't want to work for someone else, and basically spend most of their time working on someone else's goals and having no time and energy left to really live the life or create the life that they want. And what's the intention behind that? We always have to ask ourselves, if we always chase security, if we always chase certainty, then freedom kind of stays locked and impossible to reach. So maybe a little exercise for you could be to kind of reflect on your life and ask yourself, where are you acting out of fear? Where are you chasing certainty? Where are you chasing security? And this is not about, completely risking everything and not caring about the future at all. We obviously have to make sure we're good, make sure we're safe. But there's so much stories that we tell ourselves in our mind about what will happen, about how things will go horribly wrong. And what I like to do is always what's the worst thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen if you choose to quit your job, or even just reduce the hours that you work? What's the worst thing that can happen if you stop doing the things that you tell yourself need to be done in order to be secure and safe in your life? What if just 10% more than you do right now, you start chasing freedom instead of security? What if 10% more than you do now, you start chasing excitement than security? What would you do if there was no fear? If you had no fear about consequences, what would you actually do? And I mean, this is where a lot of people will tell me, this is horrible advice. People are going to end up on the streets thinking like that. But, are you really going to end up on the streets? Just be logical about this. But again, whatever works for you. If that's what you want to believe, then of course, don't take risks. But, you always have to think about, what if you don't take risks? What is the risk in that? What potential, what opportunities are you losing by not taking risks? Because that's a risk in itself. And just think about what are you doing right now just out of fear of not being secure tomorrow, of not being enough, from a societal standpoint of this social pressure. What would actually happen if you didn't chase security? If you didn't let this societal pressure of having to fit in, of having to do what you're expected to do, what if that didn't control you? And what if that didn't dictate your decisions? And there's always a degree of that, because we human beings, we're very fragile. We're easily pushed into fear. And many times I've questioned the decisions that I made in my life, and but I always went back to being extremely grateful that I chose to quit my job and sort of choose the path of freedom, of curiosity, of risk, rather than the path of security. Because if I hadn't, I think I'd be living a life right now that I would really not enjoy, Sort of this compromise where you spend a lot of time doing something you don't want to do, so you can spend a little time doing what you want to do. And that never sat right with me. And I'd rather take the uncertain route, the risky route, and find more truth, more realness, more abundance there than in a life that basically was chosen for me, or a life that feels safe but really limits me in so many other ways. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say today. That's what I felt called to talk about. And I hope this inspired you maybe to reflect on your own life. Of course, don't make any drastic decisions that put you in a extremely uncomfortable spot, in a spot where you feel really unsafe, where you feel really scared for the future. But don't shy away from tapping into that fear a little bit, where you make certain decisions that feel risky and that people even advise against. You know exactly what you need to do. That's the bottom line. You feel in your heart exactly what you need to do and what's the right move for you. And people are going to tell you not to do that. people are going to tell you it's a bad idea, but you just have to follow your gut. You have to follow your intuition. And that will lead you where you need to be, even if that's sometimes uncomfortable situations. You know, never let the fear hold you back from experience that you should make, that you need to make in order to become more of who you actually are and to live the life that you actually want to live. So yeah, I hope this helped you. Like this video. If it did, share it with someone you think needs this. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.